Hello, welcome to this Ignite discussion on Reimagine employee experiences with Endpoint Manager. Primarily we're going to be focused on Windows, on the reality of hybrid work, of remote work, zero trust networks, and the role that Microsoft Endpoint Manager and Windows plays in that experience. My name is Jason Githens. I'm a principal group program manager on the Microsoft Endpoint Manager team, also focused on Windows Commercial. Over to you, Brian.
Yeah, I'm Brian Keller. I work on Jason's team and I'm focused on app deployment, Windows updates, co-management, and a number of areas of Windows management.
All right, should we jump in?
Let's do it.
So the agenda today, I touched a little bit on the title slide, but really it's about, understanding Windows and Microsoft Endpoint Manager optimized for the reality of remote and hybrid work. But we want to dig a little bit into details and we will point to other content that's out there that will go even the next click deeper. So really think of this as more of a 200 level session, and then kind of the breakouts on top of this, or of some of the areas that we cover, will have dedicated sessions that are in the end of this slide deck that will point you to deeper dive discussions on a lot of the topics we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk cloud optimized applications, security updates, VPN and policy. What's the journey to the cloud look like? Transforming on premises to cloud attached, to cloud managed over time. Cloud provisioning with Windows 11, focused on autopilot and Windows 11 and things like Azure AD join and hybrid AD join, and when do you choose which? And last on the list, but not least by any means, one of the key elements in our hybrid work strategy, which most of you have probably heard a lot about since its announcement or its launch announcement, is virtualization through Windows 365. And again, we'll touch on that. We'll point to a deep dive session that will give you everything you need to know about how Windows 365 works, how it's manageable, how it plugs into your hybrid work strategy, your remote work strategies, and how it complements your existing install base of Windows and extends the capabilities of those Windows devices, whether they may be personally owned or corporate owned, into a highly manageable, easily configurable, virtualized instance of Windows that can extend the control plane and the productivity of your estate in this remote work, hybrid work world. So moving on into the presentation, Brian, do you want to take us a little bit through some of the realities of the hybrid remote work and really how we're, start to frame how we're going to address those through Microsoft Endpoint Manager?
Yeah, it's been a tough year and a half for all of us, given this pandemic, and we've really had to adjust to new ways of working, new ways of interacting with our coworkers, new ways of interacting with our customers. And, not only have we built up certain muscle capability as employees, but the tools have matured along with us. The collaboration tools, Office and Teams, for example, and Endpoint Manager is no different. This reality of how we work remotely, even when we get through the existing pandemic, it's here to stay. Hybrid work is something that we've all grown accustomed to. It has worked in some sense. And so this will be something that we'll be doing going forward, maybe not all the time, but sometimes. And we have to have the tools to enable you, to enable your workforce to do its best work. And we're definitely committed to that. And so through Endpoint Manager, what we have is a comprehensive industry leading solution that is cross platform. So both physical, virtual, across Windows, Android, iOS, Mac. And so these capabilities are a comprehensive thing that you can use to enable your workforce in this new reality. As Jason mentioned earlier, our focus is really enabling your end users on Windows. And so that's what we have done the last year, year and a half, and we're excited to share some of the innovations with you as we go forward.
Windows has a long history of on-premises management with the likes of Config Manager for management, with Active Directory for identity, and countless inside the firewall solutions that Windows either accesses as a line of business application, applications that are business critical that sit internally inside the customer network, the organizational network. as well as traditional models of provisioning, which typically still include imaging, whether that imaging is done by a systems integrator, by the OEM, by the customer themselves. The tradition of Windows going back 25 plus years in commercial is one that really grew up together with the management and identity solutions, which until the past few years have been predominantly on premises. And so our focus has been on providing a way, and I'll talk about this in the next slide, more around the various configuration options that we provide. But our solution, and it's been exacerbated by the reality of remote work, is to provide value add services from the cloud in comprehensive and key areas of management, which Brian touched on, things like applications, security and conditional access, settings, updates, networking, analytics. A lot of these are services that can really only be delivered from the cloud. But I do want to move into the next slide here to talk about the configurations that we support through that stack, or that example stack of some of the services we provide that have historically been on premises that we're trying to, as we continue to innovate, we're providing these solutions from the cloud, optimized for the cloud, optimized for remote work. But that said, we do have a continuum of solutions around manageability and identity that range on this chart from left to right. We effectively want to have the configuration that works for any individual organization based on where they are today. Migration has never been a winning strategy in IT services within organizations. Migration is typically a tax. Value and cost reduction drives adoption and transformation, but we should never make it or conflate it with a migration story. It should all be about transformation, about complementary services, low friction, high value services that can be attained through this arc of configurations. And if we go left to right, on premises only is where a good chunk of our install base continues to be. Not particularly called out on this slide, but there's another click stop in here around cloud connected, where you attach your tenant to the cloud and form effectively, that's where you become a Microsoft Endpoint Manager configuration, because you're getting the best out of Config Manager and Intune for things like analytics, for example, for a common console to see all of your objects and devices. Be those Windows that are managed by Config Manager, or iOS, Android managed by Intune. You see those in a common pane of glass. Moving up from that, we have co-managed, which is Config Manager and Intune working together to provide enrollment-based services. So you're both Config Manager agent managed and enrolled into Intune concurrently. And it's really optimizing for where you are today, which service provides the most value and the lowest cost. For example, one of the big adoption curves that we've seen trending way upwards over the past probably past year and a half, has been around the area of Windows updates, because Windows updates are, to meet your users where they are, which is typically at home. Windows Update for Business, being a cloud service, combined with the controls that Intune provides, is a more optimal configuration for updates and compliance and keeping your devices secure with the latest Windows updates, because it only requires that direct cloud connectivity. Effectively, if your user has an internet connection, and if they don't, they're probably not getting a whole lot done. They can see the Windows Update service, and they can see the policies implemented by Intune, and we continue to evolve those to make those meet the demands of our commercial customer base, giving IT pros the controls that they need. Version pinning is a recent example, and we'll continue to add capabilities to updates to really make it the most secure, lowest cost of ownership way to provide updates. That's an example of where you can optimize for cloud for, say, updates, but continue to manage things like your Win32 app estate with Config Manager and your updates through Intune. And that's effectively Microsoft Endpoint Manager is the confluence of those two, whereby you get the best of both worlds without any major change control motion that's high cost and potentially low value. We always want to provide the configuration that is lowest cost, lowest barrier to adoption with the highest value on the other side. And then off to the right, where we certainly have organizations going today, but it's going to be variable by what type of organization you are, what level of customization that you may have in your environment, what level of change that you may need to go through to get to that state. We have the configuration that's right for you, and you can layer those to get cloud value to complement what you do on-prem in a low risk, low change control bar way as you iterate towards what you want your future state to be on this continuum. That's the foundation of our approach here, is really one, meet customers where they are and provide low friction, high value ways to get connected to our cloud services that give instant value without a lot of moving parts, a lot of cost generators. So with that, let's start talking more specifically about some of these cloud investments we're making. And I think why don't we start with Win32 apps? Brian, do you want to walk us through some of the investments here?
Yeah, thanks, Jason. So as you mentioned, there are a number of workloads that make up that set of capabilities and that cloud story. One that I'm very passionate about, for those of you out there that have worked with myself directly or with my team, you'll know that we work to help you, enable you to deliver applications on Windows to your end users. It's a very important part of an end user's productivity, is having the apps available to them. Many times they need those apps at provisioning when they first land on their workstation for that very first time, having those applications that they need in order to be successful with their job right there at their fingertips. We enable that through integration with Autopilot. In addition, you may need to deliver apps to your end users after provisioning. And so we have a number of tools that let you not only deploy the applications, but deliver any dependencies that are required for those applications to run and for your end users to be successful with them. One area we haven't talked a lot about, but that we're definitely investing in heavily, is, especially with the pandemic, is the ability to collect app inventory information from devices, from your users in your organization. We haven't always done a great job with this. We haven't always had the most complete inventory. I'm excited to announce that we're delivering new client-side capabilities and discovery methods that are going to enable you to find a more complete and comprehensive list of applications and bring those reports back for you to view and manage. In addition, we've made investments in performance and scalability that will enable the more frequent collection of that information. So not just once a week, but actually daily reports of the applications that are out there on devices that you're managing. So look for some of these improvements as we release sprint to sprint. I think you're going to be excited about the changes. And as I mentioned, that preview, I want to thank everyone that's been working and providing us feedback on the app supersedence feature. It's something that the team has worked very hard on. And thanks to you and all of your feedback, we're soon going to be able to remove that preview tag and announce GA very soon. So excited to announce that. So in addition to Win32 apps, another area that we're investing in, and Jason touched on this, is the area of Windows updates. So for Windows updates, you may have noticed, Jason mentioned version pinning, being able to declare a certain version of Windows that's the right version of Windows for you and your end users. In addition, we've implemented a feature called Expedite Updates. Expedite Updates is about taking those monthly quality updates, and when it's very urgent, to get it out quickly, being able to create a specific policy that says, please deploy this monthly update as expeditiously as possible to get my environment updated. Another area, once again, last but not least, we are investing heavily in something we've never had before in Endpoint Manager, which is driver and firmware management, the ability to view, approve, deploy, and monitor drivers and firmware to Windows.
Thanks, Brian. I think all things in the update space are representative of the lens we put on value. We have a platform that is tailor made for OEMs and partners to publish their drivers updates directly, and then with the integration with Endpoint Manager to give IT pros the control they need, so they can trust that the right driver and firmware updates are in our Windows Update cloud, but also providing the levers to say, I don't want this new video driver to go out until I've done some testing. It's a combination of both the control that customers have always enjoyed with with things like Config Manager and WSUS, but it's exponentially enhanced with those plugins, the cloud-based logic, cloud-based data, and even a cloud-based publishing platform that all OEMs can work with. We really want just updates to flow with high trust that that we'll do the right thing on based on scan, based on knowledge we have, give you the overrides, but it should be a system that just flows. And the red button is introduced if you need to stop it for any particular reason, but really relying on cloud intelligence and the data-driven approach to just let the updates flow and then give you the overrides that you need, rather than click stop your way through various rings to say, let's start with the ring A. Did anything break? No. Ring B, did anything break? We want to identify any potential breaking changes before they ever hit the device, and then inform you. And then you can make the appropriate action off of that information rather than trying to do this in a more manual rings-based way.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's move from updates and talk about security generally. Things we've added and continue to innovate and iterate on, security baselines for Windows and Edge with recommended settings. We will give you a foundational representation of our recommendations for what these values should be in that baseline. And then we get into settings more generally. I talked about baseline. Get into templates here, administrative templates. Build on top of group policy, so it's a very familiar experience, and it helps to start really close that gap, real or perceived in the group policy versus cloud-based policy space. We continue to add native MDM policies with each Windows 10 release. We do research, we check telemetry the best we can to see what the top policies are. The constant challenge we have is we don't want to bloat the MDM policy set with the same level of expansive policies, to use a polite term, that group policy became over the years, with literally thousands of configurations, some dating back even to IE4. We're not bringing IE4 settings up into MDM policy. Another add here is, automated certificate deployment. Certificate management is complex, so automating that is a helpful add to our settings portfolio. So a couple of highlights on coming soon: third-party support for third-party and custom ADMX, which is critical for various other applications of third-party ISV applications that may be key to your environment, and being able to configure and lock those down so that they're both trusted and productive for the end user. And then, simplified authoring experience for all settings. Always on VPN, VPN configuration generally. The recent value adds we've made on VPN configuration, directly creating that machine tunnel connection in Intune without reliance on things like PowerShell scripts, other, configuring IKV2 settings directly in Intune, deploying device certificates from Intune directly. We continue to, enhance our VPN implementation configuration because, again, it goes back to the theme of this discussion: hybrid work. With hybrid work, even with a number of cloud services based on direct internet access being, hosted by Microsoft or other software vendors on various cloud-based platforms, there will continue to be the need to access those on-prem resources inside of the customer network, inside of the customer firewall.
Co-management is key to that journey that you're taking from strict on-premise management to cloud management. And there are going to be workloads, there are going to be capabilities that are just appropriate, or just more appropriate, for being delivered and offered through cloud services. For example, the new driver and firmware management I mentioned, that will be something that is most appropriate delivered via the cloud, because of the intelligence and the data-driven capabilities that we're integrating. Final investment I'll mention is the ability, task sequences are very powerful and are still used heavily as part of provisioning.
So that's a perfect time to kind of segue into provisioning with autopilot. There's nothing surprising on this slide for anyone that's familiar with autopilot and what it does, we continue to Windows 11 being fairly new. We continue to chip away at some issues that have popped up, and we'll take care of those. But the new UBI experience of Windows 11 really snaps well into the autopilot experience. Now, with pre-provisioning, again, the same statement here. Most of you that work with autopilot provisioning know what this is. It's effectively the device is pre-enrolled and apps and settings are already on the device upon first login. So it's kind of an intermediate step here that a system integrator could take, or that an OEM might even provide as one of their value-add service offerings, whereby it takes out some of the wait time.
Jason, thanks. You covered a lot of the value of Windows 365. I don't have a lot to add here, but let me just say that no discussion of enabling your workforce would be complete without at least discussing Windows 365. It's a new set of virtualization technologies, tools, services. It enables your end users to have access to organizational content, applications, even full desktops, whether they're at home, whether they're away, whether they're on a personal device or a corporate device. It's extremely powerful.
So with that, I think we'll go into closing, which is just the bottom bun of the sandwich of the agenda that we opened with, and hopefully through this discussion, and highly recommend that you branch out into some of the other sessions, or it may interest you or interest your organization. So with that, I will close off my speaking part.
Yeah, just thank you very much for your time today. It's been our pleasure to be able to share with you all.